Hey guys, how you doing? It's Sunday afternoon. Kind of in a tire mood today, so I figured I'd do some content for YouTube and the TTC page to talk about tires. And while I'm at it, I might just walk over my 1.9 TTC truck because it just went through hell last week and took some repairs. But to start off, let's just talk about tires. Some time ago, I did a video on tire cutting. And in there I showed my ground hogs. These are RC four-wheel drive ground hogs that are branded from Interco. Interco makes super swampers, which we all know. And the ground hog was a popular tire back in 80s and 90s for guys with lifted trucks. Here's the stock tread pattern, and here's where I ended up with a chevron egg pattern. You can see them next to each other and how it comes out. Took a lot of trimming, and this was the first event using these tires, and I was actually really impressed. I struggle with RC four-wheel drive tires because the tires are so soft. The rubber is so soft. I mean, you can peel like that. You can't do that with our tires that easily. And this has a single stage Proline foam, actually. Single stage 1.9 Proline foam is what's in here right now. They're just so soft, and this is the X2SS compound, so not they're super soft, it's just they're really soft. It's a pretty good compound. And the event we had a lot of rocks, and truck won the truck pull, which was a somewhat expected just because of it's kind of heavy and a lot of horsepower. Did really good in the mud pit. Didn't win it, but did really good in the mud pit, and did decent in other events. And we'll talk about how that all kind of fell apart towards the end. But I ended up taking second, which I can't complain about. So the truck broke in there, but I just wanted to briefly give an update on the tires. They work great. In some of the rock events, actually, they were pushing through. You can see up front, I have Super Swamper TSLs up front. Again, one of my favorite tires in G8, but it was pushing through them, trying to steer and turn. So really getting a lot of traction in the back. Now it is a heavy truck, so as you're going up and you're loaded up, I'm getting traction. It's easy to see how I can push through the tires. But only thing I'd say about these tires that was disappointing and not surprising though is the wear, and it may not come through very good on camera, but the leading edge, the cutting edge of the lug is starting to wear really fast. That's after only one event. I did do one test run with it for about an hour before that, but other than that, it's just been in one TTC and really wearing, so I did not expect them to last very long. I may or may not switch to TSLs all around, or throw the KLRMs in the back so I get that same chevron look with the TSLs up front, which is what I was going for. But that's that. Really pleasantly surprised, but we'll see how they hold up and if they tear. I was fearful they were going to tear during the event, but they didn't. They held together. So with that, I'm going to do a quick rundown on this 1.9 truck. It's been in my fleet of trucks for a while. Started out actually as a comp truck, a circuit comp truck. It was all steel chassis, steel cage, internal roll cage. It was a little bit heavy. It worked okay for comping. I didn't win much, but it did pretty good. And then once I retired from comping, I was like, man, this is going to be a perfect setup for a TTC truck because it's lightweight, small, and especially in the 1.9 class. So really it's a 79 Ford F-150 body, which they made for the HPI Savage. It was which is a nitro vehicle, and but I used them with scale trucks. I had a couple sitting in reserve. It's not made anymore unless it's involved in any of the recent re-releases from HPI, which I doubt, but that's where this buys from. So it's been pinched, dovetailed, and bobbed in the back. This is a TRX4 grill that I cut up and made it fit, glued it up in from the inside, just because it gave it a little more three-dimensional aspects. The winch wipers are just from some random kit, and the window mirrors are from TRX4 Bronco. I see the body velcroed on. That's how I attach almost all my TTC truck and even a lot of my comp truck bodies. Relatively simple inside. Again, full steel cage, 3/16 DOM that's braced together. A 149er Seaworks Homebrew 2 chassis rail set. Scalar fab front bumper that's been bolted in somewhat permanently because the cage is attached to it now. Mechanically, this thing is pretty bomb-proof. It has SSD Diamond SEX 10.1 axles. You can't buy these anymore, at least not that I'm aware. SSD made them for a while there while the 10.1 was still the predominant, 110 scale crawler. They have the bigger bearing, just like other SSD Diamonds. Have the front and back, and then has just regular 10.1 axle shafts with 4313 gears and a spool in there. Incision links. These are for SEX 10.2 incision links. 4-length up front instead of panhard. One thing that I will say that I did that works great if you can get your hands on these, because they do have the big bearings, so they can handle. When I say big bearing, that's a big pinion bearing. There's two 5x13x4 pinion bearings, which really allow you to put a lot of horsepower to these axles and not break out, because the pinion bearings don't melt while you're driving in high speeds. Even though it's set up to use a 10.1 C-hub and knuckle with regular 10.1 axle shafts, the way that SSD designed these, the outer spline of the axle housing allows you to use a Wraith C-hub, which is what I have on here. So I was able to do it basically a narrow XR mod just by putting both different C-hubs on, and then you can run XR10 or longside Wraith axles cut down to fit again the spool. Really a much more robust choice in this size. There aren't a lot of axle options in this size. If you have a Wraith axle or a Rift axle, you can get a lot more options, but since nobody makes a lot for the X6 10.1 anymore, this made it really nice. MIP drive shafts, semi-bomb-proof transmission, hardened gears, aluminum case, super shafty motor plate, locked up RC outputs, and then it's covered up right now, but there's a hardened steel spur gear running off a hardened steel pinion gear. So make sure we don't strip out and we don't have any slipper clutch causing problems in the events. Doing electronic duties, it's a Mamba X, which has really been a great addition to the RC community from both a high horsepower and from just a trail and TTC type truck events. Can't complain at all. Dunk it underwater completely, comes back, keeps working. I run my typical Sanwa Ergotronics radio, so it has a 3-channel in here. That's a HOG relay controller for the winch. As you can see, there is no winch installed on the truck right now. I had the really tried and true, super robust SSD Ox winch on this truck. I ran that winch for 6 years, and during this last event last weekend, I was bound up pretty bad with the truck, used the winch to get out of it, and I think I just had her overworked too many times and burnt the brushes out on the motor. Winch is still functional if I can get a new motor for it. I hold my breath. It's been a great piece of equipment for me. I'm a huge Tekin fanboy when it comes to TTC trucks. I run Team Brood in all my comp vehicles with their brush motors, but for brushless, I'm really in towards Tekin. Whether it's the Rock 412 or Pro 4 or Pro 4 HD, Rock 412 HD, I think from a standpoint of working and functioning in this type of vehicle, running 3S all the way up to 4S. This is a 3000 kV Pro 4 HD for a short course truck. Works phenomenal in here. 4S, this thing screams. Even on 3S, it's pretty dang fast. So, really happy with that. I did have a NSDRC RS500B in here for last weekend, and I found that with the way the truck, it's almost 8 pounds. There's just not enough servo for when I'm bound up and I need turn. So I did swap in an 800 V2. This is the later generation of the V2, which is waterproof, but I still add a little bit extra greaser on the servo horn, liquid tape around the joints, and liquid tape around them where the wires come out, just to make sure don't get any water inside. I don't want this thing to get shorted out, especially when I'm in competition. But at the end of the day, this thing has been a great truck overall. Really performed well during last week's competition. On that tank trap, which is our final event, I lost a front side axle shaft, and that winch burned out on me in the middle of trying to get some pretty steep grades and some pretty difficult obstacles. So really was unfortunate, but it still was a great performance overall for this truck and my limited driving skills. So that's my 19 TTC truck. I cut groundhogs into the chevrons. If you're bored and you got some groundhogs laying around and want to improve them, I highly recommend this. But since you're taking away some surface area, you're going to see a lot of extra wear. So thanks, boys. Talk to you soon.